All right. Hey, we're in Proverbs chapter 9, and let's see here. Getting logged on so I can see you guys. All right. You know something? The very first time we came back and started Proverbs, someone asked, well, it'd be nice if we could ask questions and you could answer them. I don't think I get any questions ever since that got asked. And I went out of my way to try and make it so that I could see what people were saying, because that was the problem that day, is I couldn't actually see any of the comments, but today I can. So questions are fine. 18 verses in chapter 9. Let's see if we can get them all. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her meat. She has mixed her wine. She has also furnished her table. She sent out her maidens and cries out from the highest place in the city, whoever is simple, let him turn in here. As for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, come, eat of my bread, and come drink of the wine I've mixed. Forsake foolishness and live, and go in the way of understanding. And so, that's the whole gist of it, is that wisdom's crying out. We mentioned that Proverbs opens up with some introductory stuff. 5, 6, and 7, a lot of those chapters are all about sexual morality and wisdom trying to pull you out of that. And then 8 and 9 are final, just whole chapters calling people to wisdom. Come on, wisdom. And so now we move into wisdom again. It's making a place for you, trying to make it easy for you. God puts the cookies on the bottom shelf. Here it talks about her mixing her wine. And the idea here is mixing water and wine to dilute it. Wisdom. Let's see, I have a reference to 2 Maccabees 15:39, talking about unmixed wine being distasteful, being a little too strong. And it's something just worth noting, is that they drank a lot of wine back then, but on the flip side, they also typically mixed it with water. Passover regulation, it's a 3-to-1 ratio of water to wine, things like that. And they did that because they could drink a handful of drinks but not get drunk. Sometimes you do want to sit down at dinner and have 3 or 4 drinks. But they were trying to make it so that you wouldn't get drunk from the 3 or 4 drinks, so they always mixed it. And also sometimes they mix with spices and stuff too. So it's hard to say exactly if that's what she means with she's mixed the wine, but likely that's what it is. Wisdom is saying, I've mixed the wine. I've diluted it down a bit so you can still drink it, but at the same time, you're not going to get drunk from it. He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself. He rebukes a wicked man, only harms himself. Do not correct a scoffer lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man and he will still be wiser. Teach a just man, he'll increase in learning. So this is a good example of where Jesus talks about casting our pearls before swine and what is precious or holy, in front of dogs. And the idea here is that we need to be discerning. We need to be discerning and know what's going on. Because if we're just going to argue with someone who only wants to argue, in fact, no matter how much they act like they're desiring to find answers or the truth, if we discern, we can tell they just want to have an argument with me. They're not really concerned about actually seeking the truth. And so if that's the case, well then, don't waste your time, right? If you try and correct a scoffer, you're going to get shame for yourself. This idea is, here's a scoffer. Now, I think this is another good point for Christians to remember. We are not supposed to, we're not supposed to reform society. We are supposed to evangelize and save society. We are not supposed to sit idly by and let laws pass that are going to bring immorality into our nation. I mean, that's a given, I think. But ultimately, right, we're not going to fix problems with laws. It is the gospel that fixes problems. And so, while I would always encourage every Christian to not be lazy and vote, and you vote things that are pro-life and pro God's holy covenant of marriage and things along those lines. But on the flip side, those laws won't change people. They will help keep some order, but they won't change people. They'll help protect our kids from the influences of this world, but they don't change people. But the gospel does change people. And so that's the idea. He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself. He who rebukes a wicked man only harms himself. It's because it is. They don't care. They don't want your correction. But if you give wisdom to a wise man, he's going to be all the wiser. And so remember that. Your ability to receive correction speaks of how wise you truly are. And so be willing to question things. Be willing to take a correction. Don't swallow every pill that's handed to you, but be willing to examine things. Verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For by me your days will be multiplied, and the years of life added to you. If you are wise for yourself, and if you scoff, you will bear it alone. And so here we have like the unfolding here of really, I think, the wrap-up of this section before Solomon starts his one-liners in chapter 10. And so we see, again, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now we back on up here to chapter 1. Verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And so again, it's really, before you even seek knowledge and wisdom, seek the fear of the Lord. Reverence the Lord, respect the Lord, obey and honor the Lord. And then it's just the way of folly for the final contrast. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knows nothing. For she sits at the door of her house, on a seat by the highest places of the city, to those who pass by, who go straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn and hear. As for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he who does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of hell. Right? In chapter 5 to 18, the idea of the waters, don't let your waters be poured. Rejoice in the wife of your lute, let her fountain satisfy you. So here's the idea of the waters really speaking of sexual satisfaction. And so this is where she's saying stolen water is sweet. Bread eaten in secret is pleasant. And so it's that final tie of the wisdom, of folly, sexual morality, and all those things. But it's saying, hey, people don't realize that's just the road to hell. So that wraps up kind of like the introduction to the Proverbs. And as I look moving forward, lots of couplets, lots of triplets. That is kind of what we're going to be seeing is verses often go in pairs. So an introduction in verse 1, but then 2 and 3 kind of pair up. Verses 4 and 5 pair up. 6 and 7 pair up. 8 and 9 pair up. And so as we move into chapter 10, we might slow down a lot because some of these Proverbs are probably worth chewing on, but we'll find out. We'll just start moving our way through them, and yeah, and off we go. All right. Oh, the Chosens tonight, guys. Bring a friend. Come on out. I might actually do a short video here in a minute or two just to talk about the Chosen briefly. So, yeah, maybe I'll just do it right after I hit end on this. Anyway, all right, God bless you guys. Love you, and I will see you around. I know what button to hit. Don't worry.